So I'm looking at this list of who is left in terms of top 30 free agents. And there are a couple glaring takeaways that I see. Do you want to hear mine or do you want to give yours first?
Let me hear yours.
All right. Let's just go to the top of the list.
Mm-hmm.
2 award winners, Brady Oliveira and Matthew Betts, 1 and 2 on the list. Canadians, those are guys who you bring into your building, theoretically. They're getting it done on the field, making you elite on the side of the ball and selling some tickets for you. Very interested to see where that goes, but also given their age and stage of their career, guys who potentially may want to take a shot at the National Football League. Then right below them, 3 and 4, Tim White and Dalton Schoen. For me, the 2 best, in terms of the resumes that they had over the last couple of years, 2 best receivers in their respective divisions, East and West. Those guys potentially change things for an offense right there. And then number 5, Darnell Sankey, a guy who literally was on the couch halfway through the season, is right there sitting up at 5. There can be no questions on what his impact could be on a team if you bring him in the building. The other glaring thing to me, and part of it is because this is not just an appraisal of the amount of free agents a team has, it's an appraisal of the amount of good free agents a team has. This list is littered with Toronto Argonauts. And so the ability to keep that group together and pay everybody is going to be tough because the board may differ based off of scheme, role, preference, but these players are going to be in some form or fashion on everyone's board if they have a vacancy at said position. So everyone's going to be coming for those Toronto Argonauts that are free agents. How do you keep that group together is the question. And ultimately, you didn't get it done. So how do you improve upon the group if that's even possible? Your takeaways from the list or what?
Man, that's a great point. I love the last point. It's you have to talk about that. You talk about AJ Ouellette. You talk about Darius Pickett. These are guys that have been extremely impactful for the Toronto Argonauts. And then you go down the list, you look at a guy like Witten McManus, who's a guy who anywhere you put him on any team at any point in the season, he is going to be a starting linebacker on your team, and he's going to be impactful. And so the team is going to experience great loss, obviously, if they're not able to keep these guys together. But it's going to be challenging, DB. It's going to be challenging for the simple fact that we have the top paid quarterback as well. And so now, if you're an exec, you're in Toronto, there's going to be some tough decisions to be made. And it's just the reality of the situation. Now, as much as I want to keep the locker room the same in Toronto, you just can't do that with the situation that it is. And so, you know who else that I love that we don't talk too much about? And I think if he escapes his team, man, I think that we're gonna see a difference for sure. Number 16, DB, Tyrese Beverette. We don't talk too much about him. There's a lot of names that always come up when the Montreal Alouettes come up. You heard Sean Lemon mention as well, Mondo Sewell, who's another name that we don't hear often. But this guy is one of those guys. He's the heart of that defense. He's the heart of that team as well. I know there's a Darnell Sankey. I know there's a Sean Lemon as well. I know there's a Cody Fajardo. But when you talk about that defense, really pay attention. If you truly pay attention, DB, this is a guy that's active. This is a guy that guys look towards when things are not going on the way that they want it to go. He is the guy that usually starts it off for him. And so it's going to be interesting to see if he does leave the team or if he stays.
I love that you mentioned McManus because he's on this list at 17. I don't know who put together the list. They need to take another look because there's not 16 better players. Forget about free agents. I don't think there's 16 better players in the league, number one, than him. And if I'm the Argonauts, no disrespect to AJ Ouellette or Darius Pickett or Sean Oakman or Jamal Peters, the first person I want to make sure I bring back to my building of this free agent class is McManus. Hands down. You talk about you paid the quarterback. He essentially is the quarterback of the defense. That's one. The other thing you mentioned is quarterbacks. There's only one on this list, and that's Drew Brown at 27. How many years did free agency essentially start when the quarterback signed and, let's be honest, took all the money? But so many, including last year, where's Bo Levi Mitchell going to go? Is someone like Cody Fajardo going to get a starting opportunity? What's going to happen with Dane Evans? The Trevor Harris sweepstakes happens every couple years. Drew Brown, as good as he's looked, you are still projecting what he might be. There aren't the same known quantities at the QB position this year in free agency. And so how that affects everything else is interesting. How that might affect the QB trade market is interesting. Another QB that is a free agent, but that did not make this list is Schultz. Is Schultz back in Hamilton? If so, in what spot? QB1, QB2, competing. So I think what happens with the QBs is fascinating because it isn't as obvious as it was in the past. So yeah, I'm ready, if you can't tell, for free agency. Real exciting time in terms of what it means across the league.